When I turned 70, I threw a party for the family. No one came. That same day, my daughter-in-law posted photos of everyone on a cruise. I just smiled. When they came back, I handed her a DNA test that made her go pale. My son doesn't deserve that shrew. Before we continue, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and subscribe to Never Too Old channel. We're creating a community of people who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now back to the story. I am Matilda Washington Tilley to my friends, and I stood perfectly still in the middle of my grand dining room. My heels sank just slightly into the plush Aubusson rug. I looked down the long mahogany table. 18 chairs. 18 empty chairs. The scent of buttery lobster thermidor and my famous bourbon pecan cake hung heavy in the air. For 40 years, I ran Tilley's Touch, the most sought-after catering and event company in Atlanta. I planned galas for senators. I did weddings for millionaires. I know what perfection looks like. And this was perfect. The crystal glasses sparkled under the chandelier. The floral arrangements were breathtaking. There was just one thing missing. Guests. My family, my son Marcus, my daughter-in-law Amber, my grandson Jamal. Not one of them. I looked at the grandfather clock in the corner. 7:30 p.m. The party started at 6. They weren't just late. They weren't coming. 70 years old. And I was standing alone at my own birthday party. I pulled my phone from the pocket of my silk pants. The screen was black. No calls, no text messages, not one. My thumb hovered over Marcus's name. I didn't press it. I didn't want to hear the lie he'd be forced to tell. My mind went back 6 months to this very kitchen. I'd just mentioned wanting to do something special for my 70th. Amber, my daughter-in-law, had clapped her hands together, her bright blue eyes wide with excitement. "Oh, Mother Tilley, you absolutely must. Let's throw a huge party. You deserve it. You handle the food and I'll get everyone there." Marcus and Jamal wouldn't miss it for the world. Her voice was always so sweet, like honey poured over glass. I'd learned to feel the chill underneath, but I ignored it. I wanted to believe her. I wanted my family. I looked at the phone again. I thought about my son Marcus, my boy, 45 years old and still letting that woman lead him around by the nose. I remembered the man he was before he met her 5 years ago. Warm, funny. He looked me in the eye when he talked. Now he was a shadow, always checking his phone, always ending our calls abruptly. "Amber needs me, Mom. Gotta go." Always Amber needs me. She had isolated him, pulled him away from me, from his friends, from himself, and now she had apparently pulled him onto a cruise ship on the one night she knew mattered to me. Ding dong. The sound of the doorbell was so loud in the silent house I nearly jumped out of my skin. Hope. It's a stupid, stubborn thing. Maybe their car broke down. Maybe they got the date wrong and were here to apologize. I hurried to the grand entryway, my hand going up to smooth my hair. I pulled open the heavy oak door, my welcome smile already in place. A young man in a uniform stood on my porch, dripping rainwater. Floral delivery for Mrs. Tilley Washington." He was holding the last, most extravagant arrangement, the one Amber had insisted on. "We're so sorry, ma'am. The truck broke down on the interstate." My smile froze, but I kept it on. 40 years of catering, you learn to smile through disasters. "Thank you," I said, my voice sounding distant. "Just set it on the console table." He wheeled it in, stammered another apology, and left. I closed the door. The lock clicking into place sounded like a coffin closing. I walked back to the dining room, to the 18 empty chairs, to the perfect untouched cake. I picked up a silver knife, cut one perfect slice, and sat down at the head of the table. The cake tasted like ash, 70 years old, rich, successful, and completely, utterly, and deliberately forgotten. I was scraping a pound of untouched lobster salad into the trash when my phone buzzed on the granite countertop. I ignored it. It was probably just another happy birthday text from a distant cousin who saw it on Facebook. It buzzed again and again, insistent. I wiped my hands on my apron, the anger from the empty party settling into a cold, hard knot in my stomach. I picked up the phone. It wasn't a text. It was an Instagram notification. My sister Rose had tagged me in a post. My fingers felt stiff as I tapped the icon. The screen lit up, and there they were. My breath just stopped. It was a photograph. Amber, my daughter-in-law, was front and center wearing a white bikini and oversized sunglasses, her arm slung around my son. Marcus was beside her, grinning, holding a champagne flute. And next to him, my grandson Jamal, also smiling, holding a glass of what looked like orange juice. They were on the deck of a massive cruise ship. The ocean stretched out behind them, a perfect mocking blue. My eyes scanned the image. The logo on the champagne bottle was visible. The name of the cruise line clear on the life preserver behind them. They hadn't even tried to hide it. Then I read the caption. Amber had written it. Of course she had. Surprise decided to take my wonderful family on a 7-day Caribbean getaway. Spontaneous trips are the best. My amazing husband Marcus is always spoiling me. Living our best life, #blessed, #family first, #cruise life. I read it 3 times. Family first. The post was time-stamped, 2 hours ago. The exact time my party was supposed to be starting. The exact time I was standing in my dining room, staring at 18 empty chairs. They weren't just skipping my 70th birthday. They were advertising it. They were rubbing my face in it. This wasn't a scheduling mistake. This was a statement. A deliberate, cruel, and public humiliation. Amber knew I'd see it. She knew my sister Rose followed her and would tag me. She wanted me to see. She wanted me to know that a spontaneous cruise was more important than my milestone birthday, that she was more important than me. I looked at my son's face in the photo, that wide, happy grin. He wasn't thinking of me. He wasn't feeling guilty. He was just gone, sucked into her world where I didn't exist. I should have cried. I should have thrown the phone. I should have felt heartbroken. I didn't. I just smiled. A cold, tight smile that didn't reach my eyes. I looked at Amber's perfect, smiling face in that photo, and one word echoed in my head. Shrew. My son doesn't deserve that shrew, I whispered to the empty kitchen. I locked my phone and set it down. I went back to scraping the lobster into the trash. The buzzing started again. This time, it wasn't Instagram. It was a text message from a number I didn't recognize. I sighed, annoyed, and picked it up. Grandma, it's me, Jamal. Please don't be mad. My heart stopped. I'm using a friend's phone. Mom took mine. Please, you have to help me. I'm scared. I stared at the caption. My eyes traced the words, but my brain couldn't immediately accept them. Life is for enjoying surprise 7-day Caribbean cruise for the family. Love my husband for spoiling me. #living our best life. #blessed. #blessed. She had posted it at 6:15 p.m., the exact same day as my party, the same day she knew I was standing in my home waiting for them. They didn't even have the decency to wait a day. They didn't lie and say someone was sick. They posted it publicly on the internet for everyone to see, for my sister to see. Amber wanted me to see this. This wasn't neglect. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was a message. It was a public execution of my role in their lives. It was a slap in the face, delivered with a smile and a champagne flute. I looked at the photo again. My son Marcus grinning like a fool while his wife celebrated spending his money. Or more likely my money. My grandson Jamal caught in the middle of their selfish performance. I thought of the 18 empty chairs, the mountains of food I had personally prepared, the cake I had designed to look like the one at my wedding. All of it a monument to my own foolishness. I should have been heartbroken. The old Tilly would have been. The Tilly who raised Marcus, who taught him right from wrong, who poured her life into him. She would have shattered. But 40 years in this catering business teaches you to handle betrayal. You learn to spot the client who's going to try and skip the bill. You learn to read the employee who's stealing shrimp from the kitchen. You learn to smile, stay calm, and prepare your response. So I didn't cry. I stood there in my silent kitchen surrounded by the wreckage of my party, and I smiled. It was a cold, tight smile. The kind of smile I reserved for a vendor who thought they could break a contract. I looked at Amber's smiling face in the photo, the woman who had charmed my son, isolated him, and was now publicly humiliating his mother. "Shrew," I whispered to the empty room. "My son doesn't deserve that shrew." I locked my phone and set it down, my hand perfectly steady. I went back to the trash can and continued scraping the lobster salad into the bag. The anger was a clean, cold fire now. It wasn't despair. It was fuel. They thought I was just a sentimental old woman. They thought I was weak. They thought they could walk all over me and I would just take it. My phone buzzed again. I sighed, expecting another relative who'd seen the post, but it wasn't Instagram. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Grandma, it's me, Jamal. Please don't be mad." My heart stopped. "I'm using a friend's phone. Mom took mine. Please, you have to help me. I'm scared." My phone buzzed again, but this time it was different. Not the bright public bing of an Instagram tag, but a low, urgent vibration from a text message, an unknown number. My thumb, which had been steady with cold anger, now trembled as I opened the message. "Grandma, it's me, Jamal." My heart didn't just stop. It felt like it seized in my chest. I leaned against the counter, gripping the cold granite. "Please don't be mad. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to go." The words were jumbled, typed fast. "Mom took my phone before we left. I'm using a friend's phone I met on the ship. We're in the arcade. I only have a few minutes." I read on, my blood running cold. "I have to tell you, Mom told Dad you were sick. She said you called yesterday and canceled the party because you had the flu and didn't want anyone to catch it. Dad believed her. He was worried about you. He only agreed to go because he thought you canceled." A lie. A cold, calculated, vicious lie. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a strategic maneuver. Amber hadn't just ignored my party. She had actively sabotaged it. She had poisoned my son against me with a lie about my health. She'd made him think he was doing the right thing by not bothering his sick mother, all while she dragged him off on a luxury vacation. The anger I felt before was nothing compared to this. This was a new level of manipulation. I scrolled down. The message continued. "Grandma, I'm scared. Mom is acting really weird. She's been meeting this man Chad, her personal trainer. He's been coming to the house when Dad is at work. I know it's bad." Chad. I'd heard Marcus mention him once or twice, Amber's expensive new trainer. I heard them talking, about money, about getting what they deserve. Mom said just a little longer. "After Tilly's money is in the new account, we can go." "Grandma, what new account? What are they doing?" My breath caught. It wasn't just about the party, it was about my money. "I found something," the text continued. "I took it. I think it's bad. I hid it in my room under the loose floorboard beneath my bed, in the old Nike shoebox. It's a piece of paper, and a strand of hair. It's his, the trainer's. A strand of hair, a shoebox. My 16-year-old grandson, caught in the middle of something dark, was leaving me a trail of breadcrumbs. "Please go get it, Grandma. I think Mom is trying to hurt Dad. I think she's trying to hurt you. I have to go. She's coming." The message ended. I stared at the screen. My kitchen, with its dead flowers and trays of uneaten food, suddenly felt like a crime scene. Jamal was scared. Amber was lying. A man named Chad was involved. And my money was somehow in their sights. I didn't call Marcus. I didn't text Jamal back. I put my phone in my pocket, walked out of the kitchen, and grabbed my car keys from the hook by the door. My son was being played for a fool, and my grandson was scared. That shrew Amber had underestimated me. She thought I was just a sad, lonely old woman. She forgot I was the woman who built an empire from nothing. I wasn't just going to get a shoebox. I was going to get answers, and I was going to call my lawyer. I stared at the screen, my hand gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. The message from Jamal continued. "Grandma, I'm scared. I have to tell you. Mom is acting really weird. She's been seeing this man, a white guy named Chad. She says he's her personal trainer, but he only comes over when Dad is at work. He never brings any workout equipment, just himself." My blood ran cold. A personal trainer. Amber had complained just last month about how Marcus wasn't investing in her wellness. I guess she found another way. Jamal's next words confirmed my worst fears. "I see them, Grandma. I pretend I'm doing homework with my door closed, but I see them. They drink wine. Your wine, the expensive kind you brought last Christmas. They drink it in the middle of the day. They laugh. And I don't know how to say it. They hug. Not like friends hug. It's wrong. And they talk about money, Grandma, all the time. I heard Mom yesterday. She was on the phone with him. She said, 'Just a little longer. After Tilly's money is in the new account, we can finally go.' Grandma, what new account? What money? What are they doing?" My breath hitched in my throat. My money. A new account. This wasn't just a vacation. This wasn't just an affair. This was a plan. This was theft. "I did something," the next text read. "I don't know if it was right, but I was so mad. Last week Chad was there. He was in Mom and Dad's bathroom using Dad's things. He used Dad's hairbrush, like he owned the place. My God, the audacity, the disrespect. I waited until he left. I went in after him. I took something, Grandma." A new message alert. A photo. My screen lit up with an image that made no sense for a second. It was a close-up of a single strand of hair, coarse and pale blonde, taped to a piece of white notebook paper. Below it, Jamal had written in shaky letters, "Chad's hair, from Dad's brush." My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. "I hid it, Grandma," the final text read. "I hid it in my secret spot. You know the loose floorboard under my bed? It's inside my old Nike shoebox. The red one. Please, can you go get it? I don't know why, but I think it's important. I feel like she's trying to replace Dad. I think she's trying to hurt you both. I have to go. She's coming back from the bar. I love you." The messages stopped. I stood there in the wreckage of my party. The smell of cold lobster and expensive cake suddenly made me sick. This was no longer about a missed birthday. This was a conspiracy. My daughter-in-law was having an affair plotting to steal my money, and my 16-year-old grandson, scared and alone on a cruise ship, had just handed me the weapon to prove it. A strand of hair, a DNA test. "Oh, Amber," I whispered to the empty room, "you have no idea what you've just started." Jamal thought his mother was trying to replace his father. I looked at the picture of the blonde hair again. My mind went to a darker place. What if she already had 16 years? Jamal was 16. I grabbed my keys. I had a key to their house. They'd given it to me in case of emergencies. Well, this was an emergency. I didn't sleep. I sat in my high-backed chair in the living room, watching the shadows move as the sun came up. The house was still filled with the smell of wasted food. It smelled like betrayal. By 6 a.m., the cold anger had burned away all the grief. Amber thought she was humiliating a sad old woman. She had no idea she was poking a bear. I didn't call Marcus. What was the point? He was a pawn. He'd just make excuses for her. He'd tell her I was snooping. No. When you have a snake in the house, you don't ask the snake to leave. You call the exterminator. My hands were perfectly steady. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't needed in 3 years, not since a manager at one of my kitchens was caught skimming from the register. He answered on the second ring. "Harrison." His voice was like gravel, no nonsense, just the way I liked it. "Harrison, it's Tilly Washington." "Mrs. Washington. It's been a while. I trust you're well." "No, I'm not. I have a family matter. A delicate one. I need your discretion, and I need you immediately." I heard the sound of a chair scraping. He was sitting up, giving me his full attention. "Tell me." I laid it out. Clean, fast, just the facts. My 70th birthday, the empty house, the Instagram post from the cruise ship, the text from my grandson, Jamal. He scared Harrison. His mother lied to my son, told him I canceled the party. That's cold, Tilly. That's not the half of it. She's involved with another man, a personal trainer named Chad Peterson. Jamal says he hid something, evidence, a shoebox under his bed. And you need me to retrieve it. I need you to go to my son's house, 425 Rosewood Drive. I have a key. I need you to get that Nike shoebox from under Jamal's bed. Quietly. No one can know you were there. Consider it done. What's the second part? This man, Chad Peterson. I need everything you can find. I want his credit report. I want his bank statements. I want to know where he lives, what he drives, and exactly what his relationship is with my daughter-in-law, Amber Washington. I have a photo of his hair, if that helps. Harrison was silent for a beat. A photo of his hair. My grandson is very thorough. He believes it's important. I want a DNA test, Harrison. Compare that hair to my grandson. I heard him whistle low and sharp. I think my daughter-in-law is a shrew who is capable of anything. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with. She's on that cruise for another 6 days. That's our window. I want all of it on my desk before her feet touch dry land. It'll be expensive. The DNA, the financial background check. Find out what she's been planning with my money, I said, and I promise you, Harrison, it'll be worth the expense. I'm on my way to the house now, Tilly. I'll call you when the package is secure. I hung up. I walked into my ruined dining room, poured myself a cup of coffee, and sat down at the table. Amber was on a cruise ship laughing, thinking she had won. I just smiled. The game had just begun, and she had no idea I was the one holding all the cards. Harrison is a professional. You don't stay in that business for 30 years by being slow. My phone rang exactly 45 minutes after our first call. I have the box, Tilly. His voice was low businesslike. I'm clear of the neighborhood. No one saw me. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. It was there, right where your grandson said, loose floorboard under the bed, old Nike shoebox. The kid was smart. He knew how to hide things. There was a pause. I heard him shift the phone. And Harrison, the hair... It's here, he said, his voice flat. A single blonde hair taped to a piece of paper. I'm on my way to the lab right now. I'll pick up your son's razor from your mail slot on the way. We'll have a rush DNA comparison in 48 hours. Good. The word came out sharp. Now, he continued, I'm starting on the boyfriend, Chad Peterson. My team is already running his plates, checking his credit, and pulling public records. I'll have a preliminary report on your desk by tomorrow morning. We'll find out just who this personal trainer really is. Thank you, Harrison, whatever it costs. We'll settle up later, Tilly. You just stay put and lock your doors. The line clicked. I hung up and walked over to my kitchen window, looking out over the manicured lawn I'd paid for. The lawn, Amber and Marcus took for granted. I am not a naive old woman. I didn't get to where I am by being sweet or clueless. I built a catering empire in Atlanta, a city that does not suffer fools. I've handled union disputes, thieving employees, and vendors who thought they could overcharge me because I was a woman. I've read contracts that would make a lawyer's eyes bleed. I've stared down entitled clients and stubborn city officials. Amber looked at me and saw an easy mark. A lonely widow. A checkbook to be drained. She and my son had forgotten who I am. They thought I was a relic. They forgot I was a boss. I am not the kind of woman who cries over a missed party. I am the kind of woman who hires professionals. I am the kind of woman who gathers evidence. For 5 years, I had watched my son disappear into this woman's web, and I had stayed quiet, respecting his choices as an adult. But this was different. This was no longer just a bad marriage. This was a conspiracy. They had lied to me. They had stolen from me. They had humiliated me. And worst of all, they had involved my grandson. They had scared him. I walked back to the phone and made another call, this time to my attorney. David, I said when he answered, it's Tilly Washington. I need you to start drafting papers to freeze a joint account I share with my son Marcus. And I need to know our options for pressing charges for financial fraud. Amber was on a cruise ship, sipping a mimosa, thinking she had won. She had no idea that I was back in my office dismantling her entire life. Harrison didn't make me wait. The next morning, a thick manila envelope was on my porch. My private secure email pinged at the same time. Harrison never puts everything in one place. I sat at my kitchen table, the one Marcus used to do his homework on, and opened the report. Tilly. His voice was all business on the phone. Are you looking at the file? I am. Page 1, Chad Peterson, age 30, white. He is in fact a certified personal trainer. Works at a high-end gym in Buckhead. No criminal record. clean driver's license. I felt a brief, stupid flicker of doubt. Maybe Jamal was wrong. Maybe it was innocent. "Turn to page 2, Harrison said, as if reading my mind. I turned the page. My breath caught. Photographs. Not just one. A dozen. All time-stamped. Amber, my daughter-in-law, walking out of a coffee shop, her hand linked with Chad's. Amber laughing as she got into his flashy red sports car. Amber kissing him in a parking garage, her hands wrapped around his neck. It wasn't a friendly hug. It wasn't a mistake. It was a full-blown affair. They meet 3 times a week. Harrison's voice continued in my ear, cold and factual. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, like clockwork, right after she drops Jamal at school. I stared at the pictures, the lies. The smiling Instagram post from the cruise ship felt even slimier now. She was probably texting this boy from the ship's pool. "Where do they go?" I asked. My voice was steady. I would not let it shake. "That's on page 3. He doesn't go to her house. She doesn't go to his. They have a place, a private apartment in Midtown, Unit 12B at the Azure." An apartment, a love nest, that costs money. "How is she paying for it?" I asked. "I was wondering the same thing," Harrison said. "Amber's salary as a marketing manager is modest, not Midtown love nest modest. So my team ran a full credit check on your son Marcus. And Marcus has excellent credit. So excellent, in fact, that Amber was able to open 3 new high-limit credit cards in his name without his knowledge 6 months ago." The room went cold. "She had the statement sent to a P.O. box," Harrison said. "The apartment is leased in her name, but the rent, it's auto-paid every month from one of those fraudulent cards, the red sports car Chad drives. The down payment was a cash advance from another one of those cards. The Cruise Tilly, the one they're on right now, all $14,000 of it, charged to a card Marcus doesn't even know he has." I closed my eyes. It wasn't just an affair. It was fraud. She wasn't just cheating on my son. She was systematically bankrupting him. She was using his good name, the name I gave him, to fund a new life with her boy toy. Jamal's text flashed in my mind. "Mom said after Tilly's money is in the new account." It all made sense. She was practicing. She was draining Marcus dry, first using him as a test run before she came after the main vault. Me. "She's a predator," I said out loud. "She's a financial criminal, Tilly," Harrison corrected me. "And she's gotten comfortable. The DNA results from the lab will be ready tomorrow. Do you want me to proceed?" I looked at the picture of Amber kissing Chad. I thought of my son grinning on that cruise ship, believing his wife's lies. I thought of Jamal, scared and alone, hiding evidence in a shoebox. "Proceed, Harrison," I said. "I want to know exactly who my grandson is. But it gets worse, Tilly." Harrison's voice on the phone lost that gravelly, seen-it-all tone and dropped into something colder, something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "It's not just an affair," he said. "She's not just cheating. She's stealing. This is a financial operation." I stayed silent. I walked to the kitchen window and looked out at my perfectly manicured garden. "My team ran a full credit check on your son. Marcus has a spotless record, an 810 credit score. He's financially responsible. His father and I taught him that." "He was responsible," Harrison corrected me. "According to the credit bureaus, your son is currently $82,000 in debt." I gripped the edge of the granite counter. "What are you talking about? Marcus just paid off his car. He has no debt." "He doesn't know he has the debt, Tilly. 6 months ago, Amber used his Social Security number, which she would have as his wife, to open 3 high-limit credit cards in his name. An American Express Platinum, a Chase Sapphire Reserve, a Delta Sky Miles card. All 3 are mailed to a private P.O. box in Midtown. $82,000. The words just hung in the air. "And she's not just letting them sit," Harrison continued, his voice a relentless monotone. "She's been using them. Remember that apartment at the Azure? The one she meets her trainer at 3 times a week. The rent is auto-paid every month from that Amex. That flashy red sports car Chad Peterson drives. The $5,000 down payment was a cash advance from the Chase card. She's funding her entire affair using your son's identity." I thought of Jamal's text. After Tilly's money is in the new account. This was it. This was the plan. She was practicing. She was draining my son dry as a test run all before she came after the main vault. Me. This wasn't a messy, emotional affair. This was a cold, calculated business transaction. She was a predator. And the cruise Tilly, Harrison's voice dropped even lower, the one they're on right now, the spontaneous 7-day Caribbean getaway she posted all over Instagram. Yes, $14,650, charged to the Delta Sky Miles card. She's probably earning points on a vacation she paid for with fraudulent debt in her own husband's name. I finally understood. The hashtag blessed. The hashtag spoiled. She wasn't just rubbing my face in a missed party. She was rubbing my face in a crime. She was so arrogant, so sure that she was smarter than everyone, that she would post her trophies online. She saw my son as a fool, and she saw me as a dried-up old woman who was too busy baking cakes to notice her empire was being robbed. She had forgotten who I was. She had forgotten that I built my company by reading the fine print. She forgot that I am the woman who signs the checks. $82,000. I repeated the words, tasting like poison. And 4 cents, Harrison said. They're coming home in 6 days, Tilly. By the time they land, that debt will probably be higher. What do you want to do? I looked at the phone in my hand. My son, my foolish, trusting son, was on a boat with a financial criminal who was smiling in his face while she bled him dry. Harrison, I said, my voice like ice. What about the lab? What about the shoebox? There was a heavy pause on the line. The DNA results, he said. They come in tomorrow. Harrison's voice crackled slightly, pulling me from my thoughts of the affair. But it gets worse, Tilly. I gripped the phone tighter. Worse than infidelity and staged photographs, Harrison. Infidelity is personal, Tilly. This is criminal. This isn't just cheating. Your daughter-in-law is committing systematic fraud. She's not just breaking your son's heart, she's bankrupting him. I sat down hard in my office chair. The leather creaked in the silence. Explain. My team ran a full credit check on Marcus. As you know, he has a spotless record, an 810 credit score. He's financially responsible. His father and I taught him that. He was responsible, Harrison corrected me. According to the credit bureaus, your son is currently $82,000 in debt. The room spun for a second. What? That's impossible. Marcus just paid off his car. He has no debt. He tells me everything. He doesn't know he has the debt, Tilly. 6 months ago, Amber used his Social Security number, which she would have as his wife, to open 3 new high-limit credit cards in his name: an American Express Platinum, a Chase Sapphire Reserve, a Delta Sky Miles card. All 3 are mailed to a private P.O. box in Midtown. $82,000. The words just hung in the air. The cost of a down payment on a house. 4 years of college tuition. Stolen. And she's not just letting them sit, Harrison continued, his voice a relentless monotone. She's been using them. Remember that apartment at the Azure, the one she meets her trainer at 3 times a week? The rent is auto-paid every month from that Amex. That flashy red sports car Chad Peterson drives, the $5,000 down payment, was a cash advance from the Chase card. She's funding her entire affair using your son's identity. I thought of Jamal's text. After Tilly's money is in the new account. It all made sense. This was the plan. She was practicing. She was sharpening her claws on my son, draining him dry as a test run, all before she came after the main vault. Me. This wasn't a messy, emotional affair. This was a cold, calculated business transaction. She was a predator. And the cruise, Tilly. Harrison's voice dropped even lower. The one they're on right now. The spontaneous 7-day Caribbean getaway she posted all over Instagram. Yes, $14,650, charged to the Delta Sky Miles card. She's probably earning points on a vacation she paid for with fraudulent debt in her own husband's name. I finally understood. The hashtag blessed. The hashtag spoiled. She wasn't just rubbing my face in a missed party. She was rubbing my face in a crime. She was so arrogant, so sure that she was smarter than everyone, that she would post her trophies online. She saw my son as a fool. And she saw me as a dried-up old woman who was too busy baking cakes to notice her empire was being robbed. She had forgotten who I was. She had forgotten that I built my company by reading the fine print. She forgot that I am the woman who signs the checks. $82,000. I repeated the words, tasting like poison. "And 4 cents, Harrison said. "They're coming home in 6 days, Tilly. By the time they land, that debt will probably be higher. What do you want to do?" I looked at the phone in my hand. My son, my foolish, trusting son, was on a boat with a financial criminal who was smiling in his face while she bled him dry. "Harrison," I said, my voice like ice. "What about the lab? What about the shoebox?" There was a heavy pause on the line. "The DNA results," he said. "They come in tomorrow." It was 2 days later. 2 days of me sitting on my porch pretending to read, but really just staring at my phone. 2 days of knowing my son was being financially bled dry by a con artist. The phone finally rang. Harrison. "Tilly." He didn't waste time on greetings. "The lab just sent the file. It's in your secure email. Are you sitting down?" "I'm fine, Harrison. Send it." My laptop chimed. A new email. Subject: confidential analysis. W25-1N15. I clicked it. My heart was beating a slow, heavy drum against my ribs. I'm not a woman who scares easily, but this felt different. This felt like a bomb. The email just said, "Report attached." I clicked the attachment. A PDF file opened. It was a formal, sterile-looking document from Atlanta Genetic Diagnostics, all scientific logos and fine print. My eyes scanned the page. Case number, date received, then participants. Participant A, Marcus Washington assumed father, sample provided by client. Participant B, Jamal Washington assumed son, sample provided by client. Participant C, Chad Peterson, alleged father. Sample provided by client. I scrolled past all the technical jargon, the charts, the long strings of numbers that meant nothing to me. I scrolled down, down, down to the bottom of the second page, to the part that meant everything. It was in a simple black box. Conclusion. I read the first line. Regarding participant A, Marcus Washington, the probability of paternity is 0%. 0. The word just hung there. 0. I closed my eyes for just a second. The floor didn't drop out. The world didn't end. I just felt a cold, sharp, terrible clarity. 16 years. 16 years of birthday parties. 16 years of high school tuition. 16 years of loving a boy I thought was my blood. 16 years of my son raising a child that wasn't his. My eyes opened. I read the next line. Regarding participant C, Chad Peterson, the probability of paternity is 99.999%. I leaned back in my chair. The air left my lungs in a single silent gasp. It wasn't just that Amber had cheated on Marcus 16 years ago. It wasn't just that she had passed off another man's child as his. It was whose child it was. Chad Peterson, the personal trainer, the man she was currently having an affair with, the man she was currently stealing $82,000 for. This wasn't a new affair. This was a lifetime. She hadn't just met this man. They had a history that was 16 years old and currently on a cruise ship with my son. My son was on a family vacation with his wife, her long-term lover's son, all paid for with money stolen from him. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of it, the cruelty. I didn't cry. I got up, walked to my kitchen, and poured myself a tall glass of ice water. I drank it down, feeling the cold stabilize me. Amber wasn't just a shrew. She wasn't just a thief. She was a monster, and she was coming home in 4 days. I scrolled past the scientific jargon, the charts, the strings of genetic markers. My eyes blurred. I was looking for one thing, the conclusion. It was at the bottom of the second page, in a simple black box. Participants. Participant A. Jamal Washington assumed son. Participant B. Marcus Washington assumed father. Sample provided by client from Razor. Participant C. Chad Peterson. Alleged father. Sample from hair follicle. My finger trembled as I scrolled down. Results. The probability of paternity for participant B, Marcus Washington, is 0%. 0. The word just hung there on the screen. 0. I didn't drop the phone. I didn't gasp. I just stopped. The air in my lungs felt thick and heavy. 16 years. 16 years of birthday parties. 16 years of helping Marcus with homework, telling him he was a natural father. 16 years of Christmas presents. 16 years of loving a boy I believed was the last piece of my family. 0. My son Marcus had been raising another man's child. I forced myself to read the next line. The probability of paternity for participant C, Chad Peterson, is 99.999%. I set the phone down on the table. Very slowly. It wasn't just another man's child, it was his child. Chad Peterson, the personal trainer, the man she was having an affair with right now, the man she was buying sports cars for with my son's stolen money. This wasn't a mistake she made 16 years ago with a stranger. This wasn't a youthful indiscretion. This was a long con, a 16-year lie. She had been with this man all along. She had my son raise his child. And now she was using my son's money to fund her life with that same man. My mind went to the cruise ship. My son Marcus was on a family vacation with his wife and his wife's lover's son, a vacation paid for with money she was stealing from him. The sheer breathtaking, diabolical nature of it. It was almost brilliant. She hadn't just cheated on him. She had replaced him piece by piece right under his nose, stolen his money, stolen his identity, and stolen his fatherhood. Jamal, my grandson, who wasn't my grandson. I thought of the boy scared in the cruise ship arcade texting me for help. He was a victim in this too. He was a pawn in his own mother's disgusting game. I stood up. I walked to the kitchen and poured a tall glass of ice water. My hand was perfectly steady. There was no grief. Not yet. Grief was a luxury. This was war. Amber wasn't just a shrew. She wasn't just a thief. She was a monster. And she had 4 more days of vacation left. I picked up the phone and called Harrison. "I need everything you have," I said. "Bank records, credit card statements, the lease on that apartment. I want an ironclad case for fraud, identity theft, and anything else you can find. I want it all in a binder on my desk by the time she lands." The 7 days crawled by. 7 days of me sitting in my quiet house not answering the phone. 7 days of me drinking my coffee and reviewing the thick binder Harrison had delivered. It was all there. Page after page. The photographs of Amber and Chad Peterson kissing outside that Midtown apartment. The lease agreement for the apartment itself paid for by a credit card. And then the credit card statements. 3 of them. All in my son's name. All mailed to a P.O. box Amber had opened. $82,000. $82,000 in debt racked up in just 6 months. The red sports car for Chad, the jewelry, the fancy dinners, and of course the $14,000 cruise. And then there was the last document, the one from the lab, the one that made my hands shake just to hold it. By the time Sunday morning rolled around, I wasn't just angry. I was cold. The kind of cold you feel when you know exactly what you have to do and you know it's going to hurt. I had spent the week moving my assets, locking down my accounts, and speaking to my lawyer. Amber thought she was playing with a fool. She forgot I'm the one who taught Marcus how to balance a checkbook in the first place. The phone rang at 10 a.m., right on schedule. I looked at the caller ID. Amber. I let it ring. Once. Twice. Let her wait. On the 3rd ring, I picked up. "Hello?" I pitched my voice just a little weaker than usual, a little tired, the voice of the sick old woman she had invented. "Mother Tilly. Oh, thank goodness you answered. We were so worried." Her voice was pure thick syrup, disgustingly sweet. "We tried calling a dozen times from the ship, but the signal was just awful. We felt just terrible about you being sick and having to cancel your own party. Marcus was heartbroken." I looked at the printout of the Instagram post pinned to my refrigerator, the one of Marcus grinning from ear to ear with a drink in his hand. Heartbroken, I repeated. Yes, it was a terrible shame. Well, we're back now, she chirped, the fake enthusiasm making me sick. And we brought you the loveliest scarf from Jamaica. We'd love to bring it over and just see how you're feeling. Are you up for a visit? We miss you so much. She laid it on thick. The concerned, loving daughter-in-law. She wasn't coming to see how I was. She was coming to see if I was suspicious. She was coming to see if I was still a soft, easy target. Or worse, she was coming to start the next phase of her plan, the one Jamal had overheard, the one where she gets her hands on my accounts. I looked at the two thick binders sitting on my kitchen table. One was labeled Financials, the other Jamal. Why, that sounds lovely, Amber, I said, my voice just as sweet as hers. I'd be delighted. Why don't you and Marcus and Jamal come by around 3 o'clock? Perfect. It's a date. We'll see you then. Love you. Love you too, dear, I said. I hung up the phone. I looked down at the binders. You come right on over, I whispered to the empty room. You have a little gift for me, and I certainly have a gift for you. The doorbell rang at 3 o'clock, on the dot. I smoothed my apron, took a slow breath, and walked to the door. I didn't have to look through the peephole. I knew who it was. I opened it. There they were, tanned, all three of them. Amber looked triumphant, her blonde hair lighter from the sun, a smug little smile playing on her lips. She wore an expensive-looking white sundress that showed off her tan. My son Marcus stood beside her, his shoulders slumped, his eyes finding a very interesting spot on my doormat. He couldn't look at me. He just shuffled his feet, already guilty. And Jamal. My heart gave a painful little squeeze. He was quiet, holding his backpack, his eyes darting to me and then away, like he was afraid I'd be mad at him. Mother Tilly, Amber gushed, pushing past Marcus to give me a kiss on the cheek that was all air and expensive perfume. You look rested. See, I told you a little quiet time would do you good. I just smiled. Come in, all of you. They walked into my foyer. Amber looked around like she was appraising the place, her eyes flicking over my furniture. We brought you a little something, she said, digging into her designer tote bag. She pulled out a small, flat package wrapped in tissue paper. Here you go. She tossed it onto the hall table. I picked it up. It was a scarf. Thin silk printed with garish, brightly colored parrots. I could see the Made in China tag peeking out. It probably cost her $5 at the Cruiseport gift shop. It's from Jamaica, she said. We just had the most amazing time. Didn't we, honey? It was nice, Marcus mumbled, still not looking at me. Nice. It was perfect, Amber corrected him. You know, Mother Tilly, she said, leading the way into my living room and sitting on my sofa like she owned it. That trip really made us realize some things. I sat in my armchair, folding my hands in my lap. Oh, what's that, dear? Our house, she sighed, waving her hand dismissively. It's just so small. After being on that huge ship coming back to our little 2-bedroom, it's just cramped. Don't you think Marcus, who had sat stiffly on the edge of the other couch, flinched. Well, I mean, it is, Amber insisted. And with Jamal being 16 now, he needs his own space. He needs room to grow. We're just suffocating there. I looked at my son. His knuckles were white. He was waiting for his cue. Mom, he finally said, his voice low. He looked up, and the shame in his eyes was so thick I could almost taste it. Mom, Amber's right. We were driving around the other day and we saw this house, over in Sugarloaf. Sugarloaf, the most expensive gated community in the county. It's perfect, he stammered, clearly reciting a script she had fed him. 4 bedrooms, a pool. It's an investment, Mom, for Jamal's future. Ah, there it was. For Jamal's future. The magic words. The only thing is, he continued, his voice dropping, it's a little Pricey. We just need some help with the down payment, just to get us in the door. Amber leaned forward, her smile suddenly sharp and focused. It's only $200,000, Mother Tilly. For your only grandson's future. You wouldn't say no to that, would you? Amber cut him off. She didn't even let Marcus finish his pathetic rehearsed sentence. She leaned forward on my sofa, her tanned legs crossed her eyes bright and hard. That fake sweet smile was plastered on her face. It's only about $200,000 for the down payment, Mother Tilly. She said it like she was asking for bus fare. $200,000. Just like that. Like it was pocket change. Like a 70-year-old woman just kept that kind of money in a cookie jar on top of the refrigerator. Then she hit me with the line she knew I couldn't refuse. It's for Jamal's future, she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. Jamal. The magic word. The name she knew was my one weak spot. The boy I had loved and spoiled for 16 years. It's for your only grandson. You wouldn't refuse that, would you? I turned my eyes to my son. Marcus. He wouldn't look at me. He couldn't. He was staring at the floor. His hands were clasped so tightly in his lap that his knuckles were white. A 45-year-old man, a college graduate, a manager at a finance company, and he was sitting there mute while his wife tried to hustle his mother out of $250,000. He was staring at the pattern on my Persian rug, the rug I bought him as a graduation present. He was probably counting the threads, anything to avoid my eyes. I felt a wave of pity for him, but it was washed away immediately by that cold, hard anger. He was weak. He had let this viper into our family, and now he was sitting in my house, my sanctuary, acting as her silent partner while she tried to pick my pocket. $200,000. I thought about the binders upstairs in my office. I thought about the $82,000 in fraudulent credit card debt Amber had already racked up in his name. I thought about the $14,000 cruise. He just took a cruise he thought he paid for, but was actually just more debt on his stolen credit. This woman was unbelievable. She had the audacity to sit on my sofa, smelling like cruise ship sunscreen and cheap Jamaican rum, and ask me for more. I let the silence stretch. I watched Amber's smile get just a little tighter at the edges. I watched Marcus sink even lower into the couch cushions, like he was trying to physically disappear into the upholstery. Finally, I smiled. A slow, calm, grandmotherly smile. $200,000. I repeated, my voice soft and thoughtful. My goodness, that is a lot of money, dear. Amber visibly relaxed. She thought she had me. She thought I was just the sweet, sentimental old checkbook. It's an investment, Mother Tilly, she cooed, leaning in. The market in Sugarloaf is just exploding. We'd probably double our money in 5 years. It's really for you, too. Securing your legacy. My legacy? She had the nerve to talk to me about my legacy. Jamal's future, I said again, tapping my chin. Yes, you know, I have been thinking a lot about Jamal's future lately. You are absolutely right. It is so important. Exactly, Amber said. Her eyes lit up, sensing the kill. In fact, I said, standing up slowly from my armchair, I was just organizing some paperwork for that very reason. Before we talk about $200,000, I have something for you. I was just in my office. Let me go get it. I turned and walked toward my study, my steps steady. I could feel Amber's smug, victorious stare on my back. She thought I was going to get my checkbook. She had no idea I was going to get the binders. I just smiled, a slow, calm smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. I leaned forward in my chair, matching Amber's eager energy. Jamal's future. I repeated, my voice soft and thoughtful. Yes, you are absolutely right. I am very concerned about Jamal's future. I saw Amber's shoulders relax. She shot a quick, triumphant look at Marcus. See, I told you. She's a pushover. She thought she had me. She thought the magic word Jamal was the key to my bank account. Marcus was still staring at the floor, but I saw him let out a slow breath. He was relieved the confrontation was over, relieved that his mother was going to cave just like she always did. In fact, I said, pushing myself up from my armchair, the old weak woman act. I was just organizing some Family paperwork for that very reason. You're right. We need to secure that future. I turned and walked slowly toward my home office just off the living room. I could feel their eyes on my back. I could feel Amber's impatience. She was probably already mentally spending the money, picking out new furniture for her Sugarloaf mansion. I heard her whisper to Marcus, "See, I told you she just needed a little push." I walked into my office. The room was dark, the curtains drawn. I didn't turn on the light. I walked past my desk. I walked past the drawer with the checkbooks. I didn't even look at it. Instead, I walked to the tall, 4-drawer, fireproof filing cabinet in the corner, the one where I kept 40 years of business contracts, tax returns, and recent investigations. My hand closed around the metal handle. I pulled open the bottom drawer. Squeak. I reached in and pulled out 2 binders. They were not small. They were thick, heavy. One was bright clinical white. The other was jet black. I held them both against my chest and walked back out into the living room. Amber and Marcus were still sitting there smug and expectant. Their smiles were frozen on their faces, but their eyes were confused. They were expecting a little leather-bound checkbook. They were not expecting this. I walked to the heavy mahogany coffee table, and I dropped the binders. It wasn't a gentle placement. It was a thud. A loud, final, heavy sound that broke the silence in the room. The cheap parrot scarf Amber had tossed there fluttered to the floor. Marcus flinched. Amber's smile vanished. "Before we talk about your $200,000, I said, my voice no longer soft. It was the voice I used when a supplier tried to cheat me. "I have some gifts for you." I sat back down in my armchair. I was done being the weak old woman. "You said you went traveling," I said, looking right at Amber. "Well, I've been doing a little traveling of my own, right through your private records." I tapped the white binder. This one is for you, Amber. A little late birthday present from me." Amber's face, her beautiful tanned, lying face. It started to go pale. What is this?" she stammered, her hand hovering over the binder, afraid to touch it. "That," I said, "is a DNA test." I walked back into the living room holding the 2 thick binders. The air in the room was tight, expectant. Amber was sitting forward on the sofa, that greedy little smile still on her lips. She thought I was coming back with my checkbook. She thought she had won. I walked to the heavy coffee table, and I dropped the binders. The thud was loud, final. It echoed in the silence. The cheap parrot scarf she'd tossed there fluttered to the floor. Marcus jumped at the sound. Amber's smile didn't just fade. It froze. "Before we talk about your $200,000, I said, my voice no longer the weak, frail thing I'd been using. It was the voice I used to run my company. "I have some gifts for you." I sat down in my armchair. I felt calm, colder than I had in years. I looked right at Amber. "Amber, my dear daughter-in-law, you came all this way to ask for money for Jamal's future, and I have a little present for you to celebrate your family." I reached into the pocket of my housecoat and pulled out a single crisp white business envelope. I tossed it onto the coffee table. It slid across the polished wood and stopped right in front of her. She stared at it. Her eyes narrowed. This wasn't a check. "What's this?" she asked, her voice losing its honeyed edge. "Open it," I said. "It's my late 70th birthday present. To you." She looked at Marcus, a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. He just shrugged, looking confused. She picked up the envelope. She was still smug, still thought this was some strange old lady game. She ripped it open and pulled out the single folded paper inside. I watched her face. It was the most satisfying thing I had seen in 5 years. I watched her eyes scan the first line, the participants. I watched her smug expression curdle into confusion. And then I watched her eyes hit the conclusion. The color drained from her face. Her tanned skin turned a sick, pasty pale gray. Her mouth fell open. Her hands began to shake so violently the paper rattled. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with pure animal terror. What is this?" she whispered. Her voice was a dry croak. This is fake." "What's wrong, Amber?" Marcus asked, finally looking up from the floor. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Mom, what did you give her?" I leaned forward in my chair. "It's just a piece of paper, Marcus," I said, my voice clear and cutting. "Just a little confirmation. I've been so worried about Jamal's future, I decided to do a little research." I looked back at Amber. Her eyes were screaming. "That, my dear, is a DNA test result." You bitch!" Amber hissed the word, flying out of her before she could stop it. Marcus shot to his feet. "A DNA test? What are you talking about, Mom? What did you do?" Amber was trying to crush the paper in her fist. "She's lying. Marcus, it's fake. Your mother is a senile old woman. She's crazy." "Am I?" I asked. "I didn't think so. So I had Mr. Harrison, my private investigator, take a few samples. He took the hair your grandson Jamal so carefully saved. He took a sample from your lover, Chad Peterson. And of course I've had your DNA on file for years, Marcus, from that old electric razor you left here." Marcus stared at me, his face blank with confusion. "Chad Peterson, Mom, what are you?" I looked him right in the eye. I was done protecting him. It was time for the truth. "I had to be sure, Marcus, so I tested Jamal against you." "And," he whispered, "and Marcus, Jamal is not your son." "What? What is this?" Amber stammered. Her voice wasn't the sweet, honeyed tone she used to ask for money. It was a dry, rasping sound. She was trying to crush the paper in her fist, but her hands were shaking too badly. "It's fake!" she hissed, her eyes darting between me and Marcus. This is a joke. You're sick. You're a sick old woman." "No, dear," I said, my voice cutting through her rising panic. It was calm, clear, the voice I used when an employee tried to lie to me about the register being short. "It's not a joke. It's a lab report." Marcus finally shot to his feet. He had been staring at the rug, but now his head snapped up. His eyes, my son's eyes, darted between his pale, trembling wife and me, sitting perfectly still in my armchair. "Mom, what's going on, Amber? What is that paper?" "It's nothing, honey!" Amber shrieked, her voice cracking. She threw the paper onto the coffee table like it was on fire. "It's nothing. Your mother she's senile. She's making things up to hurt me." "I'm not making anything up," I said. My gaze was locked on Amber. Her terror was sharp and satisfying like a perfectly chilled glass of wine. "It's a DNA test, sweetheart." "A DNA test?" Marcus repeated, his brow furrowed in complete, helpless confusion. "A DNA test for what, who?" This was the moment the axe would fall. I didn't look at my son, not yet. I kept my eyes locked on Amber. I wanted her to watch me. I wanted her to see my face when her entire 16-year lie collapsed. "It's about Jamal," I said. Amber made a small sound, a strangled gasp like I'd just reached across the table and slapped her. "Jamal," Marcus said. Why would you test Jamal?" "Because I'm a 70-year-old woman with a lot of time on my hands, son," I said, my voice dripping with a false grandmotherly sweetness. "And I get curious. I was just so curious about my grandson's future, the one you just asked me to spend $200,000 on. Mom, you're not making any sense. You're scaring me." "I am making perfect sense." "I was just curious. So I had my investigator, Mr. Harrison, run a little test. You see, Jamal left something in his room. Your son, our grandson, was smart enough to know something was wrong. He left me a little gift, a strand of hair, from your personal trainer, Amber, Chad Peterson." Amber stopped breathing. "And you, Marcus," I continued, "you left your old electric razor here years ago. I kept it in the back of your bathroom closet. You never know when you'll need these things." Marcus's face was a mask of utter confusion. "Chad Peterson, Amber's trainer, Mom, why would you—" I leaned forward in my chair. "Because, Marcus," I said, my voice dropping cold and final, "I had to be sure. So I had the lab compare Jamal's DNA to yours, and just for fun, I had them compare it to Mr. Chad Peterson's, too." "This is insane!" Amber screamed, finally finding her voice. She lunged for the paper, but Marcus was faster. He snatched it off the table. "Marcus, don't read it!" she shrieked. "She's a liar. She's a vindictive, crazy old woman. She's trying to destroy our marriage." "Then what are you so afraid of, dear?" I asked. But Marcus wasn't listening. He was reading. His eyes scanned the page. I watched his face go from confusion to disbelief, and then to a gray, hollow sickness. He looked up from the paper. His hands were shaking now, too. He didn't look at Amber. He looked at me. "Mom," he whispered, his voice broken. "What does this mean? Probability of paternity, 0%. Marcus looked up from the paper, his face a mask of gray, hollow sickness. He didn't look at Amber. He looked at me. "Mom," he whispered, his voice broken. "What does this mean? Probability of paternity, 0%. Before I could answer, Amber lunged from the sofa. She didn't lunge for the paper. She lunged toward me. You! She shrieked, her voice cracking the polished mask, shattering into 1,000 pieces. Her face turned a blotchy, furious red. "You crazy old witch! You followed me! You spied on me! How dare you!" She was on her feet, vibrating with rage, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You've hated me since day one. You've been trying to break us up. This is a fake, a forgery. You had this made to destroy my family." Jamal, who had been standing silently by the doorway, flinched and took a step back. I didn't even look at her. I kept my eyes locked on my son. I let her scream. I let the poison fill the room. Her hysteria was just background noise, the desperate sound of a cornered animal. When she finally paused to gasp for air, her chest heaving, I spoke. My voice was quiet, calm, deadly. "Marcus," I said, ignoring his wife completely, as if she were a fly buzzing at the window. "I had the test done, and it's not a forgery. It's the truth." I leaned forward in my armchair, and I delivered the final clean blow. "Jamal is not your son." Marcus just stared at me. He looked empty, like I had just spoken in a language he didn't understand. "Mom," he said, shaking his head slowly, his eyes begging me to take it back. "Mom, what are you saying? That's not funny. That's a terrible thing to say." "I'm not laughing, son. Look at the paper. Look at the name of the lab. It's real." "It's a lie!" Amber screamed again. She grabbed his arm, her red nails digging into his sleeve. "Marcus, baby, look at me. She's poisoning you against me. She's a vindictive, lonely old woman. She can't stand that you love me. Tell her she's crazy. Tell her—" But Marcus couldn't speak. He was looking at his wife, really looking at her perhaps for the first time in 5 years. He was looking at her wild, terrified eyes, her snarling face, her desperate, clawing hands. This wasn't the sweet, supportive woman he thought he knew. This was a stranger. "Amber," he said, his voice a hoarse whisper, Is this true? Is it? Of course it's not true. How can you even ask me that?" "Because Marcus," I said, my voice cutting through her shriek like a knife, "I also tested Jamal against Chad Peterson." Amber froze. That was the moment. She went utterly still. The color drained from her face again, leaving it a waxy pale yellow. The terror in her eyes was so profound, so absolute, that it was a confession all by itself. Marcus saw it. He turned his head slowly and looked at her. "Chad," he whispered. "Amber, why? Why would she test Chad?" "Because she's insane," Amber yelled, but her voice was breaking. She knew she was caught. She's just picking names. The test says 99.999%. I said, my voice flat. "Jamal is Chad Peterson's son. You have been raising your wife's lover's child for 16 years, Marcus. You just got back from a family vacation with him, a vacation you paid for, with money she stole from you, to give to him." Marcus stumbled back, ripping his arm out of her grasp. He sank onto the sofa, the DNA test paper fluttering from his hand to the floor. He looked at Amber, at her twisted, furious, guilty face. 16 years, he whispered. 16 years. The truth had finally landed. and the room was silent, except for the sound of my son's world breaking apart. "Don't you dare listen to her, Marcus!" Amber's shriek filled the room. She lunged across the coffee table, not at me, but at the piece of paper in my son's hand. Her manicured nails clawed at the air, trying to snatch the evidence. "She's lying! She's a jealous, lonely old woman, and she's trying to destroy us. Give me that!" But something had finally snapped in my son. For the first time in 5 years, Marcus moved faster than his wife. As she lunged, he yanked his hand back, pulling the single sheet of paper to his chest. He stood up, stumbling away from her, his eyes wide with a new, terrifying clarity. "Amber, stop!" he said, his voice shaking. "No, give it to me. It's a fake, I tell you. She's poisoning you." She grabbed for it again, but he held it high above his head. "Then why won't you let me read it?" he shouted. It was the first time I'd heard him raise his voice to her, ever. He fumbled with the paper, his hands trembling so hard he almost ripped it. He flattened it out, his eyes scanning the page, his lips moving silently. I watched him. I watched the color drain from his face, leaving it a sickly, mottled gray. I watched his eyes scan the participants list. I watched his gaze lock on the conclusion. 0%. The paper fluttered from his fingers. It drifted to the floor, landing face up on the expensive rug. Marcus just stood there. He didn't look at her. He didn't look at me. He just stared at the empty wall in front of him. 16 years, he whispered. The words were so quiet I almost didn't hear them. 16 years. Amber froze. The fight went out of her. She knew in that instant that the con was over. "Marcus, baby, listen to me." She started her voice, switching instantly from a shriek to a desperate, syrupy coo. "That paper doesn't mean anything. It's just words. You know he's your son. You felt it. You held him when he was born." He turned his head, slowly. The look on his face wasn't anger. Not yet. It was a deep, profound, bottomless emptiness. 16 years, he said again, his voice cracking. My whole... Amber, you've been lying to me for 16 years. And then she did the one thing I never expected. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She didn't apologize. She got angry. Her face twisted into a snarl. The mask of the sweet, supportive wife didn't just slip. She ripped it off and threw it on the ground. "So what if I did?" she spat. "What were you going to do? You think you could have ever had a kid like that on your own? You weak, pathetic mama's boy." Marcus recoiled, as if she had physically slapped him. "You can't even stand up to your own mother," she screamed, gesturing at me. "You think I was going to respect you? You're weak. You've always been weak, Chad. At least Chad is a real man. You... Marcus couldn't even form the words. He was choking on the betrayal. "Yes, Chad," she yelled, proud of it. "He was there from the beginning. He was there before Jamal was even born, and he's a better man than you'll ever be. He's not afraid to take what he wants. You just sit there and ask your mommy for permission." Jamal, who had been frozen by the door, let out a small, broken sound. "Mom!" Marcus turned his eyes, finally landing on the boy who looked nothing like him, the boy with the pale hair and blue eyes, the boy he had coached in Little League, the boy he had taught to ride a bike. "Jamal isn't... He's not..." Marcus looked at Amber, his face crumbling. "He's not mine." "No, he's not," Amber screamed, now fully committed. "He's mine, and Chad's, and you've been paying for him for 16 years, you fool. You paid for his clothes, his school, his food. You paid for every single thing, and you were too stupid and too weak to even see it." "Get out," Marcus whispered. "What?" "Get out." He roared a sound so full of rage and pain it shook the entire room. "Get out of my mother's house." "This isn't over," Amber shrieked, grabbing her purse. "You'll regret this. I said get out!" Marcus grabbed her arm and physically dragged her toward the front door. "You're not taking him. You're not taking my son." "He's not your son," she screamed, clawing at him as he threw open the door. "He's more my son than he is yours, you..." "You monster!" he yelled, and he threw her and her designer handbag out onto my perfectly manicured lawn. Marcus stumbled back like he'd been shot. He ripped his arm out of Amber's grasp and sank onto the sofa, the DNA test paper fluttering from his hand to the floor. He looked at Amber. Her face was no longer pale. It was blotchy, a furious, ugly red. The mask was gone. 16 years, he whispered. His voice was raw. Amber, you lied to me for 16 years. Marcus, baby, listen to me. She tried her voice, switching back to that desperate, syrupy coo. It was grotesque. She's lying. That paper is fake. She's a vindictive, crazy old woman, and she's trying to destroy us. Is she Amber? Marcus asked, his voice dead. Is she crazy, or am I just a fool? Of course you're not a fool, baby, Amber said, moving toward him, her hands outstretched. You're just confused. She's twisting everything. Then what's the truth, Amber? He yelled, shrinking away from her touch. What's the truth? Is he mine? And that was when she snapped. The desperate fake sweetness vanished. She stood up straight, her hands curling into fists at her sides. Her eyes, which had been wide with fake terror, narrowed into slits of pure, unadulterated venom. So what if he's not? She spat. The words hit the air and just hung there, heavy, toxic. Marcus just stared at her. He couldn't breathe. What? He whispered. I said so what? Amber's voice was low and dangerous. What if he's not yours? What were you going to do, huh? You think you could have given me a child? You're weak, Marcus. You're a pathetic weak, mama's boy. She practically spat the words at him. Marcus recoiled as if she'd hit him. You can't even stand up to your own mother. She screamed, her voice rising with 16 years of pent-up resentment. You think I was going to respect you? You think I was going to tie my life to a man who can't even make a decision without calling his mommy? You're weak. You have always been weak. Amber, no, he pleaded, his voice breaking. Yes, she shrieked, now pacing in front of him like a caged animal. You want to know the truth? Fine, you want to know what a real man is. Chad is a real man. Chad doesn't ask for permission. Chad takes what he wants. He knew what I needed. Chad, Marcus choked on the name. Chad, our trainer. My trainer. My lover. Amber laughed a horrible, ugly sound. The father of my son. Yes, he was there from the beginning. You fool. He was there before Jamal was even born, and he's a better man than you will ever be. Jamal, who had been frozen by the door, let out a small, broken sound. Mom. Amber didn't even look at him. She was focused entirely on my son, on destroying him. You've been paying for him for 16 years, Marcus, she sneered. You paid for his clothes. You paid for his private school. You paid for his food. You paid for everything, and you were too stupid and too blinded by your own perfect little family to even see it. You were just the bank, Marcus. You were just the paycheck. Marcus put his head in his hands. His whole body was shaking. He was making these small, strangled, gulping sounds. He was falling apart, and I just sat there. I watched this woman he had loved, this woman he had trusted, detonate his entire life with a smile on her face. Get out, Marcus whispered from behind his hands. What? Amber sneered. I'm not done talking, Marcus. We need to discuss. I said get out! Marcus exploded off the couch. It was a roar, a sound of pure primal pain, a sound I had never heard from my gentle, quiet son. Get out of my mother's house now! You can't throw me out, Amber shrieked, taking a step back, finally seeing the man she had broken. Get out! You're not taking him! You're not taking my son! He's not your son, she screamed, her face twisted. He's more my son than he is yours. You monster, he yelled. He grabbed her by the arm, her designer sundress twisting in his grip, and he physically dragged her across the living room. Marcus, let go of me. You're hurting me. You don't know what hurt is. he sobbed, and he threw open my front door. You... He couldn't even say it. He just threw her. He threw her and her expensive designer handbag right out onto my perfectly manicured lawn. Amber was still screaming on the lawn. We could hear her through the closed door, a stream of vicious, ugly words. "You'll regret this, Marcus, you pathetic." Marcus slammed the door shut, cutting off the sound. He leaned his forehead against the solid oak, his shoulders shaking. He was breathing hard, great gulping sobs of a man whose entire world had just been detonated. Jamal was still frozen by the living room entrance, his young face pale, his eyes wide with shock. He was watching Marcus. I waited a beat. I let the silence in the house settle, broken only by my son's ragged breathing. Then I spoke. My voice was calm, clear, and cold. "Marcus." He didn't turn around. "Marcus, sit down." I can't." He whispered, his hand still on the doorknob. "You need to," I said. "I'm glad you finally see her for who she is. I truly am. But that was only part one." He turned around slowly. His face was a wreck. His eyes were red swollen. "Part one, Mom. What are you talking about? What could possibly be worse than that?" I looked at the coffee table. The DNA test lay on the floor where he'd dropped it, but the other binder, the thick black one, was still sitting there, waiting. I tapped its cover. "The DNA test. That was a betrayal of your heart, Marcus, of your past. This," I said, sliding the heavy binder across the table toward him, "this is the betrayal of your present and your future." He stared at the binder like it was a snake. He looked utterly exhausted, defeated. "Mom, please," he whispered. "No more. I can't take any more." "You have to," I said firmly. "You have to see the whole truth. You have to see what she was doing while you were at work providing for her, providing for Jamal." He flinched at the name, but he walked like a man in a trance and sat on the edge of the sofa. He didn't open the binder. He just stared at it. "Open it," I said. He slowly pulled the black binder into his lap and opened the cover. I didn't have to guide him. Harrison's report was meticulous. The first page was a summary. He read it, his face growing even paler. "No," he whispered. "No, I checked my credit. It's fine." "She had the statement sent to a P.O. box, Marcus." I said, my voice void of emotion. "Turn the page." He turned it. There it was. A copy of a credit card application. American Express Platinum. His name, his social security number, approved. I never... "Turn the page," I said. He did. Chase Sapphire Reserve, approved. "Turn the page. Delta Sky Miles, approved. 3 of them," he whispered. "All in my name. I had no idea." "Now look at the statements," I said. "Go on. Look at what your wife, what Amber, bought with your good name." He turned the page. His eyes scanned the list of charges. I saw his body go rigid. "The cruise," he whispered. $14,000. She told me she'd saved up for it, from her bonuses. "She lied," I said. "Keep reading." He turned another page. His eyes scanned faster. "Midtown, the Azure, $3,500. Again and again. What is this rent?" "It's the apartment," I said. "The one Harrison photographed. The one she's been meeting Chad Peterson in 3 times a week." He made a sick, choking sound. She was using my money to pay for the apartment, to cheat on me in... "And that's not all," I said. "Look at the cash advances. Look at the charge from the European Motors dealership." He found it. $5,000. Car down payment. "What?" "That's for the red sports car, Marcus," I said. "The one her lover Chad drives. You paid for your wife's lover's car." He dropped the binder. It fell to the floor with a heavy final thud. He just sat there, hollowed out, staring into the middle distance. 200,000, so," he said, his voice a dead monotone. She was sitting right there, asking us, for $200,000 for a house. When she had already stolen $82,000, I finished for him. She wasn't asking for a down payment, Marcus. She was asking for her exit package. She was going to drain you, drain me, and then disappear with him, and with Jamal. He finally looked up at me, the confusion gone, replaced by a slow, burning rage that was terrible to see. She was going to take my son. She was going to take her son, I corrected him as gently as I could. He looked over at Jamal, who was still standing by the door, tears streaming silently down his face. "No," Marcus said, his voice rough. He stood up, he walked over to Jamal, and he did the last thing I expected. He knelt down and pulled the boy into a hug. "It's not your fault," he whispered into Jamal's hair, his own body shaking with sobs. "None of this is your fault. You are my son. Do you hear me? You are my son." Jamal just clung to him, weeping. I watched them, my own heart breaking. Amber hadn't just stolen money. She had stolen 16 years of truth. Marcus looked up at me, his eyes full of a new, hard resolve. "Mom," he said, "what do we do now?" Marcus was still reeling. He had stumbled back, his face a mask of gray, hollow sickness. He looked at Amber, who was now babbling, trying to walk back her confession. "Marcus, I was angry. I just said that to hurt her. You know I love you. You know Jamal is yours. He has to be—" "Stop talking, Amber," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through her frantic lies like a razor. She stopped, her mouth half open. Marcus turned his head slowly, his eyes empty. "Mom, please, no more." "Just one more thing, son," I said. I reached for the second binder, the black one. "I'm glad you see her for who she is, but you need to see what she is." I slid the heavy binder across the coffee table. It stopped right in front of him. He flinched as if it were a snake. "What? What is that?" he whispered. The first binder was about the betrayal of your heart. I said, my voice flat, all emotion gone. This one is about the law." Amber's face, which had been twisted in rage, went utterly still. She knew that binder. She knew what was in it, or at least she feared it. "Marcus," I said, "open it." He stared at it, his hands shaking. I can't." "Then I'll do it for you," I said. I stood up, walked over, and opened the black binder. The first page was a simple summary prepared by Harrison, but I skipped it. I wanted him to see the raw documents. I flipped to the first tab. "Proof of fraud," I announced to the silent room. "Here is the credit card application for an American Express Platinum card, applied for 6 months ago, in your name, Marcus, and your signature. Only it's not your signature, is it?" He stared at the paper. "No, I never—" "And here," I flipped the page, "is the Chase Sapphire Reserve, also in your name, also approved. And here, the Delta Sky Miles card. All 3 delivered to a P.O. box in Midtown, a P.O. box she opened in your name." Amber was white. She wasn't screaming anymore. She was shrinking. She was staring at the paperwork like it was the electric chair. "She told you she saved up for that cruise, didn't she, Marcus?" I asked. I didn't wait for an answer. I flipped to the next section. "Here is the $14,000 charge for the cruise, on your Delta card, the one you didn't know you had." "Oh my God," Marcus whispered. He put his head in his hands. "Oh my God." "But it's not just the cruise," I continued. My voice was relentless. "Look at these charges, $3,500 every month, for the last 5 months, to the Azure Apartments. That's the lease, Marcus, the one Harrison found, the lease for the apartment in Midtown where she has been meeting her lover." He made a small, sick, choking sound. "She was using your money, your stolen credit, to pay for the apartment, to cheat on you in." "Stop," he begged. "Mom, please stop." "No," I said. "You need to see it all. You need to know who you married. You see this cash advance $5,000 from your Chase card, and this charge from European Motors." I looked at Amber. She was trembling. "That's for the red sports car, Marcus. the one her lover Chad drives. You paid for your wife's lover's car. You paid for her apartment. You paid for her vacation. You paid for everything, all while she was planning to ask me for $200,000 more. I closed the binder. The sound was loud in the terrible silence. Marcus just sat there, hollowed out, staring at the evidence of his own ruin. Amber didn't say a word. She was trapped. She could scream liar at a DNA test, but she couldn't argue with American Express. I stood up and looked down at her. My smile was gone. "You see, Amber," I said, my voice low and final. "You made one very big mistake. You thought I was a stupid old woman, but I'm a businesswoman. Adultery, that just loses you a husband. It's messy, but it's personal." I tapped the black binder with one long finger. "But this identity theft, credit card fraud, $82,000 worth, that isn't personal, daughter-in-law. That's a felony. That's prison time." That final word, prison, hung in the air. It was the one word Amber hadn't prepared for. She had prepared for yelling. She had prepared for divorce. She had not prepared for consequences. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She just deflated. She made a sound, a horrible, gasping, wounded animal sound, and she collapsed. She fell right off the sofa and onto her knees on my expensive rug. The fight was gone. The venom was gone. All that was left was this pathetic weeping shell. "No," she sobbed into the carpet. "No, no, please, Marcus, please. I didn't know. Chad, he told me it was easy. No prison. Please." She was a complete and total wreck. I looked at my son. Marcus was no longer shaking. He wasn't crying. His face was like stone. He looked old. He had aged 16 years in the last 10 minutes. He watched his wife, the woman who had built their entire life on a lie, groveling on the floor. He didn't look at her with pity. He didn't look at her with anger. He just looked at her with nothing. She was a stranger to him, a criminal who had been living in his house. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his cell phone. Amber's head snapped up. Her eyes were wild. What are you doing, Marcus? Who are you calling?" Marcus didn't answer her. He just unlocked his phone and dialed 3 numbers. 911. "No!" she shrieked, scrambling to her feet. "Marcus! No, you can't! It's me! It's Amber! It's your family!" "You're not my family," he said, his voice flat. He turned his back on her as the call connected. "Yes, I'd like to report a crime, identity theft, and credit card fraud. The person who did it. Yes, she's right here. Her name is Amber Washington." Amber just stared at him. She sank back onto the sofa. She was done. And that's when I saw Jamal. He was still standing in the doorway. He hadn't moved. He had heard everything. The DNA, the 16-year lie, the stolen money, the affair, everything. His face was pale, his eyes wide with a shock and a pain that no 16-year-old should ever have to know. He was staring at Marcus. Marcus finished his call with the police. He put his phone back in his pocket. He saw Jamal. The two of them just looked at each other for a long, terrible moment. "Dad," Jamal whispered. His voice was small, broken. Is it true? Am I not?" He couldn't finish the sentence. Amber saw her opening. "Jamal," she cried, her voice suddenly strong again. "Baby, come here. He's trying to take you away from me. He's—" "Shut up, Amber," Marcus said. He didn't even look at her. He walked past the binders. He walked past the damning evidence. He walked right up to the boy he had just learned was not his. He knelt. His knees cracked in the silence. He was still a big man, and he looked up at this tall, trembling teenager. Jamal was weeping now, silent tears streaming down his face. I'm not your son. You're—" Marcus put his hands on Jamal's shoulders. "You are my son," he said, his voice rough with emotion. He pulled the boy into a hug, a fierce, desperate hug. "I don't care what that paper says. I don't care who that man is. I raised you. I taught you how to throw a baseball. I helped you with your math homework. You are my son. Do you understand me? Blood doesn't make a father. Love does. You are my son." He just held him. And for the first time, it was my son holding his. The police were there in less than 10 minutes. Amber didn't scream anymore. She didn't fight. She just sat on the sofa, a completely broken, empty woman. She looked at me just once as they put the handcuffs on her. Her eyes weren't angry anymore. They were just hollow. When they read her the charges, identity theft, multiple counts of wire fraud, grand larceny, she didn't even flinch. She had played her game, and she had lost. Marcus filed for divorce the very next morning. It wasn't just a divorce. His lawyers, paid for by me, also filed a civil suit against her for the $82,000 in fraudulent debt and every other penny she had stolen from him. With the ironclad case, Harrison and I had built the bank statements, the Love Nest lease, the photos, the DNA. Her lawyers told her to take whatever plea deal she could get. She lost everything. She's facing prison time for the fraud. She lost her lover, Chad, who it turned out was cooperating with the district attorney to save his own skin, claiming she was the mastermind. And she lost Jamal. The court granted Marcus emergency full custody. She had no money, no home, and no family left. She had wished for me to vanish, but in the end, it was her life that was erased. That first week, Marcus and Jamal moved in with me, back into the house Marcus grew up in. Jamal took his old room, the one with the baseball posters still on the wall. It was quiet. It was heavy. There was a lot of pain. I watched my son, a 45-year-old man, try to process that his entire adult life had been a lie. I watched my grandson learn that his mother had used him as a pawn and that the man he called Dad was not his father by blood. But I learned something. Blood is not what makes a family. I sat with Marcus at my kitchen table, just like I did when he was a boy. But instead of homework, we were looking at the mountain of debt Amber had left in his name. It's too much, Mom," he set his head in his hands. $82,000. I'll be paying this off for the rest of my life. I've lost everything." "No, you haven't," I said, putting my hand on his. "You lost her. That's a profit. The rest is just numbers." I went to my office and came back with my checkbook. I wrote a check for $82,000 and pushed it across the table. "Mom, no," he whispered. "I can't. This is your money." "This is family money, Marcus," I said. "And she didn't just steal from you. She tried to steal from me. She tried to steal our legacy. This isn't a handout. This is me fixing a problem she created. You will pay me back, but not with interest. You'll pay me back by living well, by being the good man I raised." He broke down and cried, and this time I cried with him. My inheritance is safe now. My will has been changed. That shrew Amber's name is nowhere on it. My legacy, my company, my house, my money, it is secure, and it will all go to the family that deserves it. To my son Marcus and to my grandson Jamal. My grandson. So that's my story. I'm 70 years old, and I had to destroy my son's marriage to save him. But was it too much? Or was it exactly what a mother is supposed to do? Let me know what you think in the comments. This story is a powerful lesson in never underestimating the wisdom and strength of our elders. The antagonist, Amber, viewed her 70-year-old mother-in-law, Tilly, as a sad, lonely old woman and an easy mark. She believed Tilly was just a sentimental old checkbook, too naive and sweet to see the truth behind her schemes. This arrogance was her fatal mistake. Amber forgot that Tilly wasn't just a grandmother. She was a boss who had built a catering empire from nothing. When betrayed, Tilly didn't just grieve. She acted. She hired a private investigator, gathered evidence, and methodically dismantled Amber's entire life of lies, exposing the 16-year DNA secret, the affair, and the $82,000 in identity theft. The story also redefines family, showing that it is built on loyalty, not just blood. While Amber committed the ultimate betrayal, her son Jamal risked everything to warn his grandmother, and Marcus, upon learning the truth, embraced Jamal, declaring, "Blood doesn't make a father, love does. You are my son." True strength lies not in deceit, but in the quiet, calculated wisdom of experience and the unconditional love that holds a real family together. So that's my story. I'm 70 years old and I had to destroy my son's marriage to save him. But was it too much? Or was it exactly what a mother is supposed to do? Let me know what you think in the comments.